Hello, welcome back to Meraki Unboxed. My name is Simon Thompson. I'm usually your host for today, but actually today we're doing things a little bit differently. This is a special bonus episode, and we're going to have a special guest host taking us through an exciting conversation today focused around the world of esports, which I know really next to nothing about, so I'm excited to learn myself as we go through this conversation today. But why are we doing this? Well, it's a big month, October. You know, we just did our security podcast episode just last week. And, you know, it's Cybersecurity Month. It's also a big month in the world of education here in North America with a big event called EduCause happening. And we wanted to get some content out that really just paid attention to the fact that there's a lot going on in that education space, a lot of conversations happening right now. And esports seems like a very fun topic to me. It sounds exciting. So I'm definitely looking forward to this. But just before I hand it over to our guest host for today, I'd like to just remind you that Meraki Unboxed is a podcast we run every 2 weeks. This is episode 89, and there is a ton of great content out there. So if you're interested in learning more about Meraki, the people and the technology, I definitely recommend you go back and have a look at that archive. I think you're going to find some very interesting content in there. And if you have ideas for the show, we're always looking for those. So please do reach out to me. You can find me on Twitter. My handle there is @MerakiSimon. And just send me your ideas, send me your thoughts, send me your feedback. Would love to hear from you. Okay, let's get into the main content for today. I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Kaelie, who is going to take us into this conversation. Kaelie, over to you.
Hi, Simon. Gosh, this is so exciting to be here. I feel very official with my headphones on. I imagine you feel like this every week, but it's a real treat today. So my name is Kaelie Lund. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm responsible for the curation and creation of global customer stories for Cisco Meraki. And I also manage Meraki's customer advocacy program, Meraki Insiders. But actually, before I even came into the tech world, I worked in enrollment management and admissions for a liberal arts college. So basically, I'm thrilled to be talking about education, and I'm also thrilled to be talking about video games because I love playing video games, and I also used to host a podcast in my previous workplace. So really, this is just like the perfect intersection of all the things that I love. But I also, Simon, before we really keep going, wanted to just highlight that you have been doing this podcast for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing that, you know, without fail, you have been producing content for people to engage with and listen to throughout the pandemic before. I'm really in awe of the work you've done on this, and I'm really wanting to take a moment as your guest host to be able to highlight your good work. So thank you for everything
thank
you've
you
done.
very much. I'm really excited for this one. So yeah, away you go.
Thank you. So today, like Simon said, we're going to get to talk about esports on a college campus and getting to learn a little bit more about how a university is using Meraki technology, Cisco technology to power their esports program. It is my total pleasure to introduce Adam Caylor, who's the Chief Technical Officer at Ottawa University. Adam, how's it going? Welcome to Meraki Unboxed.
Thank you, Kaelie. It is going great today. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Definitely. I'm thrilled. I know that we've gotten to chat just once before and bond over our love of Zelda and all things nerdery. So I know that this is going to be a great conversation. But I'd love to, have you kind of introduce yourself to folks listening, share a little bit about your background, how you got to Ottawa University, and a little bit about your life and what you do.
You bet. Sure. So as you said, my name is Adam Caylor. I am currently the Chief Technical Officer for Ottawa University. I've been here just about 6 years, probably just a little bit over. I am a kind of in the weeds IT guy, right? So I've been doing this for a while. I'm primarily a hardware person. I often joke that my first job within IT was I worked for a small computer retailer, and I had to actually replace the motherboard. So I had my screwdriver gun. I took out 4 screws, took out old motherboard, put in a new motherboard, put in those 4 screws, and sent it down the line. I realized pretty quickly didn't want to do that for 40 years. So
kind of awareness, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, this isn't great. So kind of worked my way into the networking world. Where I first was exposed to Cisco in general, of course, as many network technicians are, as kind of the holy grail in terms of getting to that point. So I worked within networking and a couple different consulting ventures, working there, and worked my way up to head of system building for a company here in East Central Kansas. From there, kind of spent a little bit of time in the finance industry, where I was a director of IT and focused a lot on risk assessment and technology advancement, and kind of how scale works for small rural banks. And then from there, I moved within the education space, which I've been in for, just about 10 years, which makes me feel old. But
well, congratulations. That's a long time.
Yeah. So I started in the K-12 space in my hometown of Garnett, Kansas, little bitty tiny town, about an hour south of the Kansas City metro area. Worked there for a little while, and then was blessed with the opportunity to come up here to Ottawa University. So I started out within the data center section and managed that portion, and slowly kind of gathered some more hats and responsibilities. And I was promoted to CTO back in July of 21.
Well, congratulations again. That's quite a journey you've had just at one university as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah, with that, what we're talking about today is esports. So we launched esports back in 2019, and I was a big part of that, for better or for worse. So it was really fun to kind of explore the entrepreneurial side of IT, which we don't really get to. Lots of times it's just break fix and see what's not working, and then making sure the Wi-Fi is up, right? So to kind of apply the business metrics from obtaining my MBA from OU it was great to kind of flex that a little bit.
I bet. I love how you described it too as entrepreneurial. Can you tell me more about what you mean when you say you kind of got to view the entrepreneurial parts of this?
Sure. There was nothing like this within OU. There was a little bit of technology, a little bit of student affairs, a little bit of athletics. So it was really kind of reinventing the wheel in terms of what student engagement really looks like. And it's kind of a funny story with how it started. Initially, the scope of esports within Ottawa University was kind of discussed as being what we call a rescue sport. To where if there's a student athlete that comes on campus to play football and they happen to tear their ACL and need surgery, and they can't play football at that level again, or in any sport for that matter, then there's sports like esports that would be there to kind of make sure that student is still involved within the student body, and they have something to do for their scholarship to continue their education. So that was the initial thought process back in 2018. Fast forward to 2022, and now we have over 40 students in the program. We compete in multiple games. We've won a national championship, which I certainly can't take the credit for. I'm just the IT guy. So, but it's pretty
maybe a little bit, just
a little bit, right? If the internet didn't work, they wouldn't be able to play. I'm just saying.
That's what I'm saying too. It's true. And for viewers at home, if you're thinking, boy, Ottawa University and Kansas in the same sentence, is Adam? Do Adam and Kaelie know what they're talking about? Yes, we do. It's Ottawa, Kansas, not Ottawa up in Canada. Though I'm sure you get that quite a bit, Adam.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Times a week.
Do you ever get applications sent to your university that actually are meant for a place in Canada?
Absolutely. Yeah. We get folks who think that they're applying to the different college. Even I've heard stories about submitted payments to the wrong college. Yeah. People, folks trying to pay, and it's the wrong institution. So
it's the first real challenge is if you can identify it's the correct school, then in the correct location, then it's a little bit easier to get in, hopefully, at least the starting point. But let's go back to the beginning too. So I've loved hearing about your very holistic technology background. I think that really shows up in the ways that you were able to kind of implement all of the different Meraki pieces on campus, and the way that campus runs on Wi-Fi, and the ways in which that it's been just growing too. I'm curious if you can just kind of walk us through what esports are, what esports is. What's the correct verbiage for that? Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, I think it's but I'm an IS major, not an English major, so I probably can't help there. So at the core of it is competitive gaming. And there's a number of different titles. I think that the best way to describe it would be to equate esports to track and field. So with inside of the esports umbrella, there's a number of different titles. And one of the common misconceptions is thinking that there'll be one student that come on campus and he or she will compete in Rocket League, and then, well, why can't they compete in Overwatch? Well, we wouldn't ask, the long distance runner to also throw shot put unless that happened to be within their wheelhouse. So,
or a sprinter to run a marathon, right?
Right, yeah. That's a way better comparison. Thank you. So
it's all the same. I love that analogy. It's track and field. It's 1,000 different events, right? You could be good at all of them or none of them, but probably not all of them.
Yeah, and so I think working through that, and our coach Alex does a fantastic job, of kind of walking through all of the aspects of that. One of the big challenges, not only managing the students and the titles that they play, but the practice schedules, the competition schedules, and the different leagues that each of these titles are in. So we play Rocket League, Call of Duty, Overwatch, League of Legends. A lot of those perennial titles. We really kind of we rose to fame with our Call of Duty team, which launched really when the program really took off around 2020.
And I think that's the one. Is that the one where you won the national championship?
Yes. Yeah, we finished first and second. So it was a all Ottawa final. So
absolutely sweeping the competition. Wow.
It was fantastic. So, and we tell folks that, and so they think, okay, well, there might be like 6 teams in this, but it was a very large bracket, and there was a number of Division I schools that were a part of that. I think during the year we beat Texas A&M and Florida State. I think LSU at one point. So it was a great experience just to be able to mention Ottawa University with those folks, right?
In the same breath, right?
Absolutely.
I can imagine too, really put yourselves on the map in a lot of different ways, both in terms of how your school quickly became like a national leader and winner in this world, but also, what did it show the leadership at your university after your teams won those, both first and second place, right? I mean, what did they take away from that?
Yeah, so I think primarily what they take away is the legitimacy of esports. So I think just being in that space and understanding how that can help students. I think one of the primary benefactors of this are the students that come within the esports program. Those are students that may not have come to Ottawa University otherwise, right? So that's typically a different type of student, right? Those students are more interested in engineering, computer science, graphic design, right? So there's it's not your typical college student from a athletic standpoint.
Yeah, I'm sure it brings in a unique way to both recruit and maintain those students. And especially I'm thinking for athletes for whom, a injury would be a devastating loss to not only playing that sport, but also putting their education in jeopardy if they were to lose a scholarship. I know you talked about it originally as, a potential rescue sport, but it seems like it's quickly grown to become quite a pillar of your university's athletics program.
It really has. And even on the Ottawa, Kansas campus, and also in our Surprise, Arizona campuses as well. So we have spaces at both campus sites, and so they have become a fixture of tours of the campus and just conversations around the university in general.
I bet it must be like a little bit of pride to hear when those tour guides are walking by and saying, and this is the blah, blah, blah part for the blah, blah, right? And then you're like, oh, I helped that blah, blah, blah part. That's my esports. Name it correctly.
I have zero shame in that. So I think the first year, yeah, I was trying to like sneak over there during every campus tour. Like, yeah, look, to hang this light bulb took this amount of, that kind of stuff. So
absolutely.
It's pretty fun.
And it's so cool to get to know that that's now a big reason people are coming to your university. So I'd love to visit. Let's take a trip back to 2019 when we were all a lot less jaded pre-pandemic. But and also like eventually I'd love to talk about what it was like to launch this program amidst a pandemic as well, because I'm sure that was a huge challenge. But first, let's talk about what was the inspiration for installing this esports program onto Ottawa's university's campus.
I think esports had been talked about at the campus, but there's a lot of folks that didn't really understand what was involved with it and kind of what the real impact would be, and is this really real? So I think there was a lot of those conversations initially. Our chancellor at the time, Kevin Eichner, he was on a fundraising trip and then talked to a person who was a potential fundraiser for the university and was introduced to the owner of the esports franchise based in Dallas. a part of that conversation was, hey, the esports is really launching. It's becoming a huge deal in North America. It's been a very big deal in Asia for some time, but it's starting to really impact here. And wouldn't it be great if Ottawa University was one of the schools on the forefront of launching esports within the higher education space?
I bet that was huge to have your chancellor being the advocate there. I'm sure that's very unusual across college campuses where the person on top is the one like leading the charge there.
Absolutely. It's kind of within, Ottawa University, as we always try to pride ourselves on being the forerunners in many different types of education and educational endeavors, even from online education 20 years ago. So it's really kind of in the DNA of OU, I would say. So it was just the next challenge. As I was only been there a couple of years at that time, I was excited to be a part of that conversation with the chancellor and with other major leaders within the university.
So your chancellor comes back from this experience learning about esports, and then what happens? How do you get to make, the moves to, implement this esports program on campus?
Sure. So we actually took a trip to the NACE conference, which was in Atlanta, Georgia, to meet with some other schools and some of the larger schools that have really already had their name within esports: Boise State, Marysville, Harrisonburg, all of those types. So in attending that conference, I think the vast majority were like Ottawa University at the time, which we were looking for a way to launch esports. And what does this really mean? How does it impact students? And what we found is there, unfortunately, at other locations, there was a tendency to kind of shortchange some of the technical aspects, right? Well, they would take a portion of the computer lab, or it had to be scheduled around classes. And so with those shortcomings and some of the student frustrations that we heard from those type of programs, we found a way to differentiate ourselves. We found a way to actually go in the marketplace and partner with, at the time, CDW, and then Horizon out of New Jersey, to really kind of construct a true esports arena, which I think at the time was the largest one outside of the one in Full Sail in Florida.
That's super cool.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I always say that I wish we would have took a lot more pictures of kind of the before and after. The before was kind of an episode of Hoarders.
Oh no.
There was just stuff everywhere, and folks certainly had the best of intentions, right? In terms of trying to upgrade pieces and portions of theater equipment and lighting and sound over the years, but didn't really have with that kind of the total project scope. So that's what we came in with. To kind of help develop that space and what would be something that would work for traditional theater, band and choir concerts, but also for esports. And it's been primarily our esports location for the better part of the time it's been installed. So
it sounds like what is now the arena was previously a theater that was, it sounds like, pretty old and in need of updates anyway. Can you walk us through what that renovation looked like?
Yeah, it was. There was times it felt like it was too fast, and times it felt like it was going to a crawl. So, it was the scope of it was just. When looking back now, I'm surprised that we weren't a little more overwhelmed. We replaced all of the electrical in the space to have new electrical equipment. We installed a lot of new networking cable, of course, powered by Cisco Meraki, to help facilitate all of our connection needs, and then paint, patch, and fix a new carpet and that sort of thing. And
all the cosmetic details.
Yeah, all the cosmetic details, and that was working with a local architect. We kind of helped determine what was the best way to mount and install all of these modern technical components in a theater that was built in the early 20th century. So and that was fun. It was kind of a head scratcher at the time, but eventually, looking back, it was extremely rewarding, I would say.
And I'm sure to be able to bring life into an old building that was already on campus. I mean, I can't imagine it might have been kind of an energy suck in terms of if it was just staying there and not really renovated, right? But giving it new life and having it be a home to not only the esports programs, but like you said, music programs or, theatrical department programs. I think I mean, that's a huge thing that also draws new people to campus, knowing that you have both a leader, you're a leader in the space of esports, but also you have these really amazing facilities that not every university has.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was, and once we had, I'll say, alumni come back and tour the space and saw the transformation that it made, the, although folks didn't really understand and kind of question the whole notion of esports, they certainly appreciated the work that was done in the space, the large projector screen that was put up, the line array speakers, so we could have really concert level sound, the fully automated lighting rig that we had to really help and kind of make for a really professional look on the stage itself.
Yeah, I think that would be, I mean, amazing as a college student to be able to go to a place that had a facility like that. I think back to, I certainly saw lots of college tours and places like that when I was back touring colleges that did not have any sort of facilities like this. Um, so I'm curious too, how did you make the decisions about what pieces of technology and Meraki technology to implement in this space? How do you set up an old theater from, like you said, the earliest 20th century and turn it into an esports arena?
Yeah, and that was it was a tough portion of it, but once we kind of dove into it was really fun. So because we really got to think about the use cases of who's going to be using this space, and the first and foremost, as it always is, the concern is around the esports athletes and what competitions that they're going to be in, what games that they'll be competing in, and how do we provide the best bandwidth that we possibly can and at the most secure levels, right? So they can enjoy the game that they're playing and then also be successful. So I think that was first and foremost, but that's, hardwired Ethernet cable to make sure that we have the least amount of routing points possible in between. And then I think further from there, it was more about utilizing Meraki wireless solutions to determine for the spectators, so they could have the best experience possible. And that's where it gets a little of the gray area because of the pandemic. We were starting to get a lot of really good numbers within the arena itself, and folks were coming up just about every Saturday to watch our Overwatch team play, and then the pandemic hit, right? And then we unfortunately couldn't have folks there anymore. But that was a way, because much like a traditional stadium environment, folks want to interact with the sport that they're watching, right? So if they're at, of course, I'm from Eastern Kansas, so if we're at a Chiefs game, we want to be able to pull up statistics, right, to see who's done what, how many yards Travis Kelce has, all this, that, and the other. So, and it's very similar. Whereas in the esports realm, they might want to look up the gamer tag of the player that they're seeing to see what other games that they stream or what their reach is on Twitch.
Right, because it's not just a kind of a nice to have. With esports, I feel like it is kind of a requirement that you need to be able to, see how these people compare in real time and looking at their platforms and the way they've previously played, especially when you are in the space with them during a competition.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how does setting up an esports arena on a university differ from just setting up the ability for people to play video games? I think a lot of people would just assume that, okay, you need, sure, Ethernet's nice to have, but why does it need to be this way? What special things do you need to make it into a secure arena?
Sure. So it's really about width and scalability. So if you were to set up a gaming lounge, right, you would have a finite number of stations that you have to provide service to. Whereas for esports, you would have to kind of think ahead about what titles that you're going to grow to, and then what's kind of the total picture that you need to provide for all the athletes who partake into the program. So there's like I said, going back to like the gaming lounge idea, which we're certainly looking to implement. I think a lot of universities and colleges are.
Yeah.
So with that, it's a very finite number, right? You kind of know exactly what you have, and you kind of control that space a little bit. Whereas with an esports arena, you want to control the space, but you don't want to limit the growth and the usage of it. So there has to be more scalability.
Mm-hmm. How do you deal with security when it comes to, I think back to, especially during the pandemic, people were worried about Zoom bombings or, all of a sudden there are people in a lobby or in a meeting that shouldn't be there. Is that similar for esports? Are there similar concerns regarding that?
It is. So there, in terms of folks joining the actual match, not quite so much. Those are authenticated accounts. So there isn't really that much concern within that realm. Uh, I'll say just with the games themselves and just trying to make sure that we have the latest security patches so we're not causing any issues. Because they have to be able to compete in the title that they're in the conference of. One thing that we found and had kind of a issue with is that if the games aren't up to date, that puts the competitors at a competitive disadvantage.
When the pandemic hit, people weren't able to actually be in an esports arena with people and seeing the competitions. What happened with the esports program during that time?
Well, we tried to reevaluate, and it became pretty clear pretty quickly that students could still participate within the esports program even if they were at home. So when the pandemic first hit, around spring break time, which a number of other educational institutions did the exact same thing, but all the students went home to participate within remote learning, right? So with that, that about the only event that folks could still participate in was esports. So it kind of helped students to meet and kind of still have that camaraderie.
I bet it was nice. And for them too, to have that lifeline back to campus. And the reason that maybe they were, choosing Ottawa to be able to, continue their education, but also have this program that they were chosen for, selected for, wanting to be a part of.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about how setting up a esports arena is a different type of, configuration than maybe setting up just a regular university for Wi-Fi and, capabilities there. What does the rest of your campus look like? Does Meraki, are there other Meraki pieces on campus?
Absolutely. So we are a full stack Meraki shop at all 4 of our campus locations. So if someone's connecting to a network at an Ottawa University facility, then they're doing so by utilizing Meraki solutions.
It's cool to think that people are able to submit papers and also watch YouTube videos on campus because of Meraki. I think, when you work for a tech company that has hardware like that, stories like yours and being able to humanize it and show how people are using it on campus or in their, industries, it's so helpful, I think, for people to really kind of get a sense of how Meraki can, help make their lives better. So
and that was so helpful within the pandemic because we could take traffic that needed to be prioritized, right, for Zoom meetings or Blackboard Collaborate, whatever the platform or methodology that existed. Meraki helped us reach that goal, even through remote connectivity through their VPN client.
If you hadn't had Meraki on campus, do you think that your switch to remote learning would have been as successful?
I can't say that it would have been. I definitely believe that the nature of the Meraki solution being as flexible and dynamic and scalable as it is, it allowed us to kind of turn on a dime. And not only from the client perspective, but also allow connectivity from outside the network. So for example, one of the things that we accomplished that was so successful for us was launching basically a online terminal server through a web gateway that we utilized the Meraki networking technology through our firewall to allow those connections to come in.
So what does that mean in terms of the student experience? What does that translate to?
Sure. So for the student experience, it didn't impact students as much. The majority of their functionality was within web-based programs that were either hosted here or through cloud partners. It was really for our faculty and staff who could not come to campus, either because they were concerned about their health or had a health issue, or the mandates from local government would not allow it. That allowed those folks to work from home from whatever device that they needed to without the university providing a separate device, because laptops were really hard to come by, right? So that was kind of the beginning of our supply chain issues. So that really helped facilitate remote work for folks in a much different way than we had previously imagined.
I'm glad you brought this up because I previously had been really, talking so much about these students. And part of that is my bias from working at admissions, where I was so much working with students. But I think when you're thinking not just about the student experience or visitor experience, coming to see these competitions, but the actual faculty and staff and people working at a campus to keep it going. I mean, that's huge to know that those people didn't necessarily have to worry about their jobs or being able to work from home safely, like you said, if maybe they had a health condition or there were certain, mandates that made them work from home. I'm glad to hear that it was a successful solution during that really turbulent time when there wasn't a lot that was super, definitive, that Meraki was able to help make that happen. Is there anything that when we're thinking about esports or set up on campus or the actual theater space that you want to mention because maybe I haven't asked about?
I would say that the audio-visual technology within an esports program is almost as equally as important as the network capabilities of the program itself, or even the machines that students are gaming on. To be able to broadcast to the world the work that these students are doing in the medium that they're doing it in, I think is very important and helps give legitimacy to esports in general.
Absolutely. So what did that look like in your arena?
Sure. So we mounted a couple cameras that went back to a Blackmagic video production system. Now this was 2018, 2019 when we kind of designed and installed everything. So there was a kind of a in-between time in terms of technology, if you will. So a number of our cameras and the solutions we have were on older SDI-based technology. What we're pivoting now is to actually utilize our Meraki backbone, the network itself, to use NDI and Dante type technology to help transmit our audio and video signals to our streaming computer, which then sends it out to Twitch, YouTube Gaming, or whichever platform we need to.
That's pretty cool. And again, something I wouldn't necessarily think about, even though I will sometimes watch these competitions happening on Twitch, I don't necessarily think about how at the same time these things are, happening on campus with the players, that also all this web capability and traffic of actually streaming so people can engage with that. That's a really good reminder.
Yeah, it's very exciting when you think about the different mediums that can exist on a computer network. That's also said from a computer networking nerd, so that might be a little bit of bias. So.
Well, I mean, nerd is what we do here, so I don't know if that's necessarily the soundbite we want. But no, I love hearing when people are able to kind of share their expertise in a way that also ties into their job. So I love getting to hear that passion and like the love of nerdery that you have coming through. So I'm curious, as we're thinking about not just education and the opportunities that esports allows students to be able to have to attend college and universities. I'm curious about running the college as a business as well. So has this esports program opened up any new revenue streams on your university's campus that maybe previously weren't there?
Absolutely, yeah. So just in terms of the students themselves being a part of the program, kind of we talked a little bit earlier about that. I do believe that the majority of these students are students that would not have attended Ottawa University otherwise. So I think getting those folks in here and kind of experience the campus through the lens of esports. We're certainly looking for other ways to utilize traditional streaming technology and platforms, Twitch and YouTube Gaming, to see how that can kind of augment the revenue stream. I think a lot of higher ed schools I think a lot of higher ed institutions are getting there. Just not sure what that really looks like in total scope. And we're kind of walking that line every day to try to figure out where the heck all this stuff goes.
Well, I feel like you're one of the most prepared to jump in when you do find exactly where your next steps are, with all of the equipment on campus, but also having this arena already built in with all the equipment. Back when you were thinking about how to really set up your campus for success, or maybe in that case it was just one campus, but really thinking about how you wanted the legacy of technology to look on campus, tell me more about how how Meraki became part of that equation and what that looked like when you were planning out the future of campus.
You bet. So I actually walked into the network refresh project, is what we called it here internally. So back in August of 2016, when I started, we had just begun replacing all of the existing network equipment with Meraki. And so the goal of that at that time was just to have a layer 3 solution that was scalable, that we didn't need a extremely experienced network technician at every location, that we could manage all these different locations that we had from a single pane of glass. Now, what they say, sometimes better be lucky than to be good. We selected this solution and it went live and it was a great success for us. And then we launched our our surprise campus in the fall of 17. And so with that, it was pivotal that we utilized Meraki as a partner to really scale up to that solution. And, I talk a lot about width in terms of a solution scale. And that was, we could add a whole nother campus node, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. It was just trying to get the right equipment in the right place. And once it's there, then hooking everything up to the ISP, and then we're ready to go. Then we're providing Wi-Fi to this location that had nothing a day ago. So the fact that you can add equipment and really kind of weave it into your existing network so seamlessly was a huge point for us, and it really made me even more of a believer in Meraki. I was always aware of the Meraki solution, but I didn't really understand the total scope of it, or really what all the benefits were until I started here and really managed this project and really got to dive into the solution.
What were some of the benefits that did surprise you?
Sure. So just how easy it was to add hardware. So once we procured the hardware and got it on site, to add it into the network to get it functional was really, it was not a matter of days or weeks as it would be with traditional hardware solutions, because we always something that we forgot because maybe something wasn't really meant to plug into another, right? But the Meraki solution, especially being a full stack one, it made it really easy to kind of combine everything together and just launch everything from the get-go.
So you talked about, it would otherwise take you days or weeks. How long or how much time do you think that you saved, using Meraki and adding Meraki onto your previous solution?
Well, so I would say that in terms of total time, of course, it depends on the scope of the project and the size of the building, but it was definitely hours and days at most in terms of to get these new facilities online and working.
Do you think how long do you think it would have taken if you hadn't had Meraki, like comparatively?
Gotcha. So typically in other institutions I've worked at and other networks, if we don't have a solution like Meraki, it was always a struggle to get multiple vendors to kind of talk to each other. And even if it wasn't in terms of like the hardware plugging in and working correctly and just the link lights lining up, there was some kind of API issue, or there was some kind of connectivity issue, or a VLAN issue. Meraki really helps to kind of ease those pains.
I'm glad to hear that. I think that in the tech world, getting no complaints or no calls, to your data centers or to your IT department is the best kind of compliment. How would you say that it's been received by the folks working in their IT department or across campus for students, faculty, et cetera?
Sure. I believe for the folks who were here under the previous networking topology, they're very thankful that not only is it faster, but the connections are more reliable. We don't have to worry about long outages that's going to be hours and hours long. If we have an outage, it's usually a couple minutes, and it's something not Meraki related. So that's very, very helpful in that aspect. I think students, we're deploying more of a consistent technology base. So we use the MR30H within our residence halls. And so students, even when they go to their friend's room, they don't have to worry about finding where the network jack is, or if it's going to be a different SSID. It's going to be consistent technology that works every time.
That's great to hear. And I think that for students, being able to have that consistent, reliable Wi-Fi is like something they don't want to ever have to think about. So the fact that this is just working super smoothly and, kind of allowing every inch of campus to have that connection, that strong connection, I think that's a huge win.
Absolutely.
So I did think of something related to esports I wanted to come back to, which is you mentioned, really coming on the map, Ottawa University's esports program in 2020, but that was the same time that you had this big closure and, people weren't on campus. So what did that look like? How did that success really come to be if people were not on your campus?
Sure. So we were one of the institutions that in fall of 2020, students came back on campus, and it was really the students who really helped drive that decision. There were a large number of students within all of our residential campus locations. They are student athletes, so well over 90%, I think, on both campus locations. So they want to participate in their event, whether it's basketball or softball or esports.
Track and field.
Yeah, track and field, right? There you go. Yeah. So I think all those students really wanted to feel like they belonged and have that space to come back to compete, to have some kind of something relating to being normal, right? So with that, we recruited a great team, and got to have the great opportunity and kind of pulled everything together to win that national championship.
I think it's a really amazing story to know that that all happened within your first year, but especially on top of it having, been half of a year that people weren't even on campus. I think it makes me really respect the work that you've done with this program and also really value the work that the students put into making that, that huge accomplishment happen. I'm sure that was a really amazing way to put Ottawa on the map.
Yes.
So I'm curious about what your plans are for the future of this esports program. What are Adam Caylor's big goals, and what are your dreams, and what are the plans for esports?
So the success of esports really drove home the idea of remote viewing and streaming. Especially with the pandemic, we really found as a university within some strategic thinking that the ideas and the metrics of remote viewing really aren't going away, even as maybe the pandemic starts to die down. So there will always be that component of folks who attend classes remotely, or if there's a speaking engagement on campus and folks are sick and stay home but still want to view the event, even up to the football game and even up to esports. So with that, we kind of launched a digital media department, which helps facilitate the broadcasting infrastructure, which of course lives on the Meraki network. So that to me really is kind of the next step within esports, is just has those titles evolve, being able to broadcast those and giving a really professional experience for the viewer at home. I think that combined with hoping that more developers kind of clue into the higher education space, and there's so many opportunities here for such great stories, such great competition. So I think as those folks weigh the options within the professional esports scene, hopefully they continue to invest within the collegiate space as well.
It's exciting to think that this is going to only continue to grow as well. I am really curious about what the future will look like in a couple of years on your campus.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said before, I really can't take credit for anything besides the technical components of this. Our athletic department, our student affairs, the folks who've brought in the correct talent to really run the day to day. Can't say enough great things about all those folks who've accomplished that.
I love that. You're such a higher ed person too. I can tell at your core, because you're thinking about all the other people it takes to run this, not just the folks who are working in the IT department.
Absolutely. We try.
Yeah, definitely. What does your IT department look like though? So clearly you're the CTO here at Ottawa University, but what else does it look like both at the main campus and other campuses?
Sure. So we kind of we pride ourselves on being what we call a university-wide service. So we really provide solutions to all campus locations. There's a number of folks here on the Ottawa campus that help the Wisconsin campus or even the Surprise campus on a daily basis, and full-time employees and part-time graduate students who are in the Surprise campus, vice versa, right? So we really try to help whoever needs help at whatever time that they need help. So it's 4 departments that kind of that construct what I oversee within IT. So there's our help desk, our data center, technical operations, cybersecurity, and of course that digital media department that I mentioned a little while back. So it's a great team, and we have some experienced leaders and some folks who are just a little bit newer to the IT scene. Folks who really kind of have that hunger. They really want to learn as much as they can. We launched a graduate assistant program to where students who already have their undergrad degree, they want to complete their MBA through OU. They can work within the IT department to help kind of the financial strain of the MBA itself. And then of course we have the tried and true student worker program, right? So for undergrad students to be the lab assistant for the computer lab and all those other components. So it really is. It's a great group. Certainly love coming to work every day to work with my team.
I love that. That's so sweet. So when you say campus-wide or university-wide service, I'm picturing you have like 100 people working on staff. Is that close to accurate?
No, no, no. We have there are 5 full-time employees
Oh,
under me.
it's totally off.
And we have, I think there are 5 graduate assistants, and then between both campuses, probably about 10 or 15 undergraduate student workers. So yeah, we are a small team with a very long to-do list, but like a lot of nonprofit, private, religious universities, there's always focus on the budget, but we like to think with the talent that we have, what we can do and what we can augment.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you feel like Meraki and the equipment that you've had, the decision you made to kind of become a full stack campus, do you feel like that's allowed you to save money that would have otherwise gone to additional staffing people or anything like that?
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah, for sure. So not only just money, but also time. So it something as simple as the cable test functionality within Meraki itself keeps having to get a specialist to go grab the tools, go 3 buildings over. Right, they're going to get asked 4 questions on the way over that they got to fix before they get there. Right, so just a lot of those typical IT pitfalls that you see everywhere. Meraki helps us to overcome those just with that single pane of glass.
I love that example too of, oh, by the way, can you help me with my Wi-Fi? It's like, have you turned it off and turned it back on again? Oh, okay, I'll try that. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's always those. Or my kid broke his Xbox. What do you think I should get instead?
wow. And then you're like, I can't answer that question.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, pal. Sorry.
That's hilarious. I'm glad your expertise is really coming in handy for those questions too. So, well, I am curious. What are some games you're playing right now? What are some things you're excited about that might be coming out? Because I do believe that you also dabble in video games.
I do. I'm very much a casual gamer, so it's fun for me to see the students over in the esports arena compete. But then I realized, like, man, I need to go back home and go back to playing Mario. Like, there's no reason I should play Call of Duty. Like, I can't do a 1/100th of what these guys and gals do. So, but yeah, I'm certainly, I'm approaching 40, so I'm a 90s kid. So I love all the old Super Nintendo stuff. My kids, I have 4 boys, and so they have like a Switch and PlayStation, all that stuff. And so I'm the one that they know which games they can't delete, like the Castlevania collection on the PlayStation 4. That would get mad if you delete the Castlevania collection. Mega Man, all those, all the old Mario games on the Switch. That they know that's all the dad can play, so they can't mess with those.
I love that. Are you somebody that is excited to finally have a release date for Breath of the Wild 2? Because I know I am.
I'm excited for anything Zelda. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what it was. If there's some kind of content coming out that's Zelda related, I'm all over it. I'm probably one of those guys that liked those terrible games on the CDI back in the early '90s. So,
I love that. Yeah. Well, I know that Nintendo Direct was terribly exciting for me. And I actually was thinking, because you talked about how like you're also a big Zelda fan and just like how your kids have also picked up elements of Zelda that they love too, right?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's little things, within common media. You'll hear like especially sounds from Zelda, right? So like when you uncover the secret, it plays the tune. Like my kids automatically know what that is, right? So they know, hey, someone just uncovered something that's very important somewhere. So
oh my gosh, wait. So Adam, that's actually my text ringtone.
Seriously?
Seriously.
God.
So I'm as we're kind of wrapping up, we've really gotten I think a really good sense of both how the esports program at your university has empowered students who maybe otherwise wouldn't have discovered a university or attended, given these opportunities to those students and also to people attending Ottawa University and enriching their lives on campus. You talked about the other departments that this has gotten to interact with too, whether that's student affairs or the music departments, their departments also using this space. And I'm thinking more holistically too about your choice at the beginning to have Meraki on campus and how that's allowed you to just kind of build upon more easily and more scalable, like you said. First, folks at universities considering esports or implementing an esports program, what advice do you have for them?
Oh gosh, I would say keep an open mind, right? So the typical esports athlete is a good chance they're significantly different than maybe another athlete that you have specifically, or just a student in general. It's a great opportunity to focus on the technology and help technology tell your story of what kind of program that you want to launch and how it can impact your students. There are just a million miles that folks still have to go in terms of doing more integration for esports within STEM and STEAM, and really understanding how that will impact the total academic experience for a student. And and there's also something to be said for diversity within the esports space. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our former coach, Sergio Brock, who's now the esports director at the University of Maryland. He spearheaded, and just so proud of him and the work that he's done, and now Alex continues to work on here in terms of having females and people of color being a focus of the recruiting platform, and really kind of expanding esports to be more inclusive in general within the higher ed space.
Absolutely. Folks who maybe otherwise wouldn't have, as easly accessed or had doors open for them to be a part of this sport. You're giving those folks access and, making sure that there's space for them at the table.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or at the console, I guess, so to speak.
Well, it's still a table. I mean,
we're still sitting down. Yeah.
Right? It's a chair. I mean,
yeah. I love that. And I'm glad you're highlighting that too, because those are huge disparities in higher education too. And being able to really specifically say, this is a way in which we've been able to both recruit and, continue to allow students to thrive on campus for maybe whom otherwise it wouldn't have been an opportunity for them to have this esports opportunity or compete at this level. So thank you for taking time to make sure that was part of this story as well. I'm appreciating Ottawa University in a lot of different ways.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And last question is, if anybody's on the fence about, considering using Meraki as their solution on campus, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say really sit down and look at what your requirements are. Like really look at all your check boxes. What do I need to have for, my network to perform at the peak? And I'm willing to bet, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find the majority of those boxes are checked by Meraki. They have one solution or another. And we don't really even use all the solutions Meraki has to offer, right? We haven't leveraged the MDM, right? There's camera and all that stuff. And so we've dove so far into the networking side. That's our primary focus right now. But really, as Meraki continues to expand its offering, there's probably not much that Meraki can't solve for you.
I love that. And I'm excited to see how that fits into your future of esports on your campus too. So Adam, thank you so much for your time today. I'm just really delighted with this conversation. This has been a ton of fun. Simon, thanks for having us. This has been a total blast.
It's been really interesting. Adam, thank you so much for taking time out to join us. It's been amazing. Kaelie, amazing hosting. Thank you for that. Lots of good questions in there, and I certainly feel a little bit more educated now about this world of esports. I'm not even going to tell you about my gaming life. It's way too embarrassing, and I'm aging myself so badly. Okay, I came in slightly after Pong, all right? Slightly after Pong. Let's be fair. We did decide to make this extra special bonus episode, as I said right at the beginning, and that's because we have this special event happening for higher education this month. And Kaelie, I think you had a word or two to say about that.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. So on October 27th, it's this Thursday from 11:15 to 12 p.m. Mountain Time. You can actually learn a little bit more about how Cisco is empowering esports on a different campus. So at EDUCAUSE, there's an esports speaking session with Neil Tilley, who's from Cisco, and Todd Sutton, who's the Assistant Vice Chancellor for UNC Greensboro. They're going to be talking about how Cisco and Meraki are powering solutions for their esports program on their campus. And for folks actually at EDUCAUSE, you can go straight to room 610 and 612. If that's too specific, you can just check it out online. And if you have any other questions about Meraki and how it can maybe power your esports programs or just your university's campus, feel free to visit our higher education page on Meraki.com.
Thank you for that. And let's close things out. Don't forget, we will be back in a couple of weeks. Actually, it'll just be 1 week. Remember, this is a off-schedule episode we're doing here. So we will be back next week with another episode of Meraki Unboxed. Hope you're tuned in. If you're not a subscriber already, go to your podcast app and hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you as a regular here on Meraki Unboxed. Until the next time, bye-bye for now.